Dynasty Vipers Vipercast.
Hello, welcome back to the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast. And this week on the Behind the Gring Podcast, we are sitting down with Irvington High and Utah State alum, College Hall of Famer, 8-year NFL veteran, Super Bowl champion, now NFL analyst, over on Sirius XM Radio, with stops at ESPN, NFL Network, and the Seattle Sports Network. Please welcome Robert Turbin. How you doing today, Robert?
Man, my man took it all the way back to Irvington High School.
Let's go. That's what we do here.
Go Vikings. I love it.
We kick it old school here. Major, he's from out in California way there, so he knows a little bit of something there. College of Canyons, way back, throwback. So we like to go old school here. We like to bring it all the way back to where we began and bring it where we are today. So we're going to talk probably a little bit of touch on Irvington High a little bit later on the show and some of the stops on the way to get to where you're at today there with Sirius XM Radio, this NFL analyst kind of thing. 15 years ago, did you see yourself jumping into the whole fantasy football NFL analyst type thing? I mean, media is probably an option. I mean, it's one of those things players have been able to transition to pretty decently here, but transitioning from a player to maybe fantasy football is not something we've seen until more recently. So was that something that you saw 15, 20 years ago?
Not at all. I mean, fantasy wasn't even something that I really dove into until about a year ago. And I don't even know if it existed 15 years ago. If it did, I apologize to all of our, long time fantasy owners and managers out there, but it wasn't a thing that I was into, and even really the media aspect of it as well. I mean, I don't really see myself as a media personnel member per se, and I'm not afraid to say that on air. I'll tell guys with the quickness, like I'm a football expert, I am not a media member. I'm not out searching for a story. But I always thought I'd be a coach. I always thought when I was done playing, that I'd find myself coaching ball and inspiring the next generation of guys to be great. And I still do that in a multitude of ways, just not coaching. So my life has certainly turned out a little differently, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
That's the thing. I think one of the things people forget, when you play the game, you look at the game differently. So when you're analyzing these players and stuff for fantasy purposes, you've got some sleepers, some guys we've talked about that you like a little bit more than maybe the consensus does because you've played the game. You see what goes into it. I know Major, when he does this whole process, because he played running back, he has a certain eye on what running backs should and should not be able to do. Whereas me, who did not play the position, really, I'm just kind of going by what I see on film, which is completely different than what you see. So when you look at some of these best backfields in the National Football League, and we're not going to go best backfields altogether. We're going to talk about teams that you've played on in the past. We're going to talk about the backfields there in Seattle with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. We're going to talk about the backfield in Indianapolis there with Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss. We're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns with Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford. And, of course, we can't leave out the Dallas Cowboys there. That stint there in Dallas where they've got Tony Pollard, Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn. When you look at these four particular backfields, what's your favorite backfield of them all right now? What do you think is going to be the most productive backfield? Not the best player out of any of these backfields, but the most productive backfield of the four teams.
Well, I think the first backfield you have to look at is Cleveland, only because Nick Chubb has done it for so long. He's been one of the most consistent players in all of the NFL at any position. And so when you look at it like that, you got to get your eye on the Cleveland Browns and what they're doing in the backfield. Now, they don't have, obviously, Kareem Hunt anymore. Dearness Johnson is gone now. So that, that triple threat, that three-headed monster is gone in a lot of ways, which is going to put a lot more pressure on Nick Chubb's shoulders. But that's nothing he's a stranger to. We saw the season that he had last year, and he's only continuing to get better in my eyes. I don't see him slowing down a bit. I think after that, you got to look at Seattle because you're talking about two young players in Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet with a lot of potential. Kenneth has already had his opportunity to display and show the world what he's capable of doing out there on the field. And he's only growing and getting better himself, still a young player. And obviously Zach has to get out there and show us what he can do. But I think most of us are pretty confident that he can go in and produce. It's not like he's coming in to be the starter and all the weight is on his shoulders, right? He's going to be spelling Ken Walker, which takes a little bit of pressure off of him, and he can go out there and be himself and play a little bit more free. After that, I'll probably look at Dallas. A lot of people are really high on Tony Pollard coming back from the injury. I think the one thing that I guess I'm fearful of for Dallas as it pertains to Tony Pollard is, man, you don't got that security blanket anymore in Zeke Elliott.
Right.
Not that he needed it anymore, but there is a very distinct difference when you become the man now in the backfield. And every single week, teams are preparing for you. Not to say that teams weren't preparing for Tony Pollard in the past, but the main guy that you're looking at was Zeke Elliott. Those are just the fact. It's natural because he's the starter. And so you're going to look at him a little bit more than you do Tony Pollard. But now he's the guy. So week after week after week, not only players, but defensive coaches are going to be looking and counting on what are things that we can expose out of Tony, and can he do it for 17 straight weeks? He hasn't shown the ability to do that yet as a starter full-time. Right. Then on the flip side of it, they haven't identified a solid number 2 at the running back position for the Cowboys. I like Ronald Jones. You mentioned Deuce Vaughn. I think Deuce Vaughn, if given the opportunity, can have a hell of a year in fantasy. I think he was the most under the radar pick at the running back position, aside from Tank Bigsby, who I think with the Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. But Deuce Vaughn, I think people really should keep an eye on him. But I look at the Cowboys next. And then lastly, I'll look at the Colts and Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss. A little bit of a big question mark for me. A lot of people are assuming Jonathan Taylor's going to be back to where he was a couple years ago. It doesn't happen like that. And, the thing about Jonathan Taylor is what the Colts have done to him, similarly to what the Cowboys did with Zeke. You get a young guy with a lot of talent, and you put all these carries on him early, then he starts to break down sooner than you would expect him to, right? And I think that is something that should cause a little hesitancy if you're a fantasy manager looking at the Colts backfield.
I like that. It's funny. We look at Jonathan Taylor as this first round pick, this, massive, we've got him. He's had an RB1 season, but you're right. He's probably the riskiest running back that people are taking in the first round because you're coming off of that injury. There's a lot of unknowns with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. How much is he going to take away on the ground? So yeah, when you're kind of lining those up, Taylor might be one of the first guys off the board, but he might be in the riskiest backfield of them all. So completely agree with you on that. And then kind of, you mentioned with Tony Pollard, the transition of him to being that guy. And there was another guy last season in Jacksonville, Travis Etienne, who made that transition after James Robinson got traded to being that guy in Jacksonville. And now everybody is worried that we've got Darnell Johnson and Tank Bigsby, a couple of guys you mentioned coming in here who might be coming in to take some of that workload off of him. So when you're looking at Travis Etienne, are you in or you out? Burst or bust on him?
No, I'm in. I think the other guys coming in is actually a good thing for Travis. He's still a young player. He doesn't have nearly the wear and tear like a Jonathan Taylor, who's equally as a young player, right? Those guys coming in, what is that going to do for Travis? It's actually going to take some of that wear and tear off of him. So what you're doing is you're allowing him to actually be fresh or more fresh when you get to weeks 14, 15, and 16, and 17, right? You're getting ready for that playoff push. Then you're going to be able to have your best player out there. The thing about Travis Etienne in comparison to Tank Bigsby and D'Ernest Johnson and those other guys is those other guys don't have quite the versatility in their game like Travis Etienne does. So what do you have Tank Bigsby for? D'Ernest Johnson, what can they do? Well, they can get 3rd and 2. You don't have to have Travis Etienne going out there and doing that all the time in those situational moments of a football game. But what he can do is, spread the offense around, spread the defense out, catch the ball out of the backfield, line up in the slot, right? And obviously run the ball out of the backfield as well. So his game is very versatile, and the Jaguars are going to use him a lot, but those other guys are there to take some of that wear and tear off of him. That only benefits Travis. It doesn't really take away opportunities for him.
Man, love all this running back talk, man. This is my favorite show we've ever done. We got a running back expert in here talking about running backs the whole time. I'm loving it. Let's do another burst or bust. We got Javonte coming off that injury. Javonte Williams over Samaje, who pretty much had his best season last year, when Mixon went down. What's your thoughts on that?
If I'm a fantasy manager, this might sound kind of crazy, but I'm taking Samaje Perine first over Javonte Williams. Not to say Javonte Williams is not going to come back and have a great year, but Samaje Perine has proven one thing, and it's the most important thing in football, and that's dependability. That's availability. And so as a fantasy manager, what do I want? For me individually, when I'm looking for guys and I'm drafting, I want guys that I know are going to be playing, period, and are going to be making plays. Samaje Perine is going to be called upon on a consistent basis. And Russell Wilson is a huge check down type of quarterback. Look at his history. And he will check that ball down to me, Marshawn, all the guys that he's played with, right? He's big on that. I've played with him. He's standing back. Hey, I need you to get out right here. Right? That's Russ. Not all quarterbacks are like that because they want to get the ball down the field. Russ will take his check downs. Samaje Perine is going to be a huge piece, particularly on third down. Javonte Williams, don't be surprised. You're not going to see him on third down a lot. I don't believe. It's going to be Samaje Perine running those routes, picking up those pass protections, and making those big plays in critical moments of the football game. He'll even be in there in 2-minute situations. That's what I suspect as well. So if I'm a fantasy manager, I'm in on Samaje Perine. I'm actually taking him first. I'll get Javonte Williams later if he's available down the road.
Man, that's some great insight. So, you are media now, bro. Don't you be trying to fight
I ain't
it.
the media. You know
what
I mean?
He said I'm not the media.
Hey, listen, I'm a football expert. I'm a player connoisseur.
Yeah. Okay. So being a player connoisseur, you are looking at the running back landscape in today's game. Is there anybody out there that you looking like, wait a minute, they're kind of like Turbo out there?
Oh, that's a good one, man. No, I see myself as a versatile guy. And I've actually never really even thought of that to know. But, I think, the listeners are going to be like, Turbo, trip it,
But we always see ourselves a little bit different, though. You know what I mean?
No, but I think it's Derrick Henry. I think it's Derrick Henry. Obviously bigger than I am. Yeah, but I was a downhill guy.
Yeah.
Had some versatility as far as catching the ball out of the backfield. I was great in pass protection. I was utilizing those situational moments a lot. If I ever had the opportunity to be a 3-down back in the NFL, I think a lot of my running style would mirror, how Derrick Henry runs. I only carried the ball 15 or more times twice in my career. I think the first time I went for 100 yards and the second time was 99. So I didn't get those consistent opportunities to display what I could do in a football game, with 15, 20, 25 carries on a consistent basis. But if I did, I really do believe like it would mirror a similar running style to D. Henry.
I'm not mad at that because, like I said, man, you used to run that rock, boy. You used to run downhill, 100 miles per hour, running through people. So, I mean, you don't have his height though, but he like 7 feet tall.
Yeah, he's bigger than me. But when I was coming up, there were 3 guys. When I was in college, there were 3 guys that I tried to mirror my game around, and that was.
Wait, hold it, because I'm about to. That's one of my questions. You about to kill one of my questions.
Okay,
yeah, let's hold that. Yeah,
I got you.
Well, and I don't think that's too far off. If you remember, I think it was the 2016-2017 season there with the Colts. You had 8 rushing touchdowns that season, so you know how to find and get the way into the end zone. And it's not like it was something new to you. If you go back to college, Utah State, over 3,300 rushing yards. On 565 carries, you averaged 5.9 yards per carry, and you had a school record 40 touchdowns in your time over there. We're going to touch on Utah State here in just a second, but before we get really into the whole behind the grind aspect of the show, we got to kind of maybe take your childhood, maybe it's more recent, but if you're coming in to close a baseball game, or maybe you're a WWE superstar coming to the ring, what would be that intro music to bring Turbo down to close out the 9th inning?
Hey, that's funny. That's a funny question, man.
No, this is one of our best questions, man.
Yeah, I think I would have to go with Mystical, old school Mystical. Who You Want? What I think it's called Who You Want or something like that. Just that bass, that bomb, bomb, bomb. I need that. You know what I mean? Like it has that, I don't know, it just does something for me as an intro.
Yeah, that one.
There I go.
Yeah, right. Here, that's what it's called.
There I go.
Hey, don't stop there, Major. Keep it going, buddy.
Yeah,
Keep it going.
That's the one
if you know
for me,
Misco, you don't know any of the words. You just go, there I go.
There's no words. There are no words. You don't know what he's saying. You just know, here I go. I'm coming
Exactly.
right now.
Hey, but that's one of you have to put on before the game. That's one of those songs.
Yeah, that's the one for me right there. That's my intro.
So that sounds like a song that you're okay with your teammates hearing or the fans hearing that you enjoy. But what's maybe one of those guilty pleasure songs you're like, oh no, man, if the guys hear me listening to this, I'm not going to hear the end of it.
Man, you know what? That's a funny question. I don't know why I don't have my phone on me right now. If I Ain't Got You by Alicia Keys. Now listen, I will sing this in front of nobody though. You know, that's one of the ones.
He's like in the shower, in the car.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Make sure like doors are closed, locked.
Yeah.
You know. But she was always one of my favorite artists growing up because of how she could, you know, play the piano and sing at the same time. You know, similar to some of the old school artists that we've seen in the past, like, who am I thinking of?
Stevie Wonder and all that.
Thank you, Stevie Wonder. You know, those guys. You gotta have a real skill, like, cause I'm a musician. My dad, he taught me how to play the piano, and I played the drums growing up. And, you know, like I would see some drummers, you know, we go to church, some drummers would be playing the drums and singing. Like I didn't have the coordination to do that. So it was like to see someone play the piano and be able to sing so beautifully. I was always a big fan of hers, but that's one of my guilty pleasure songs right there.
I can definitely get it. I'm a rocker myself, and I'm a big Steven Tyler fan. Aerosmith. He's a guy, like you said, he can play the drums and sing. He can play the piano and sing. He can do it all. I mean, you just have that certain appreciation for people that can do multiple things at the same time. Because I can barely drink coffee and do an interview at the same time right now.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about young Turbo before you was even Turbo. We all know sports is really important growing up. It keeps a lot of us out of trouble, give us something to do, put us in the right direction. What other sports did you play growing up, or you just strictly football?
No, my first love was baseball. I grew up an Oakland A's fan, growing up here in the Bay. I remember going to A's games growing up. My favorite baseball player of all time is Rickey Henderson.
Same, yeah.
And so he was my inspiration because, you know, I used to bat first, and I always had a lot of speed. So I would bunt, get on first, steal second. You know, that was the thing. You know, and so I love baseball so much. I thought that I would be a professional baseball player. And then somebody put an orange thing in my hand one day, and I started seeing Michael Jordan on the television. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm like, I want to do that. You know, like now that it was just something about that. And you know, when I was young, elementary school, like I wasn't always athletic. Like I had a lot of speed, but my coordination just wasn't there. So I used to be one of those kids that get picked last in elementary school. Like I remember it vividly, like third grade.
Still mad about it, huh?
I never forgot. You know, and I mean, I could tell you the names of the captains and everything. You know, for real, the popular kids. You know what I'm saying? Mario and Sergio.
Mario, what's going on, man?
Yeah, man. You know, and so they would pick me last, rightfully so, because I wasn't good. But I'll never forget, this is third grade. So boom, third grade ends. And I'll never forget, you know, my cousin and I, we lived with each other at the time. And he was like with the popular, you know, he's 1 grade older than me. You know, he could hoop. So I'm like, man, can you teach me how to play? You know, can you teach me how to dribble? So we used to be in the backyard for hours, man. Just boom, through the legs, back and forth. You know, just doing stuff, man. Just practicing dribbling. Didn't have a basketball court, but our roof was like, you know, in squares, like the tiles.
Okay.
So we picked one, and that was like the hoop, man. So every time we shot it, like, man, we had to get it in the middle of the square, the ball. You know what I mean? That means we made it, you know. And whatever that routine was for us, it worked because your boy came back the next year, recess, and my cousin is this is a true story. My cousin is trying to tell him, the popular kids, like, yo, my cousin is different now. Y'all should pick him, or the team. And they didn't want to believe him. So I got picked last again. It was kind of crazy. Man, come on, man. We
Came
went
out there.
Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Went out there and tore they behinds up, man.
Nice.
So basketball, long story short, basketball was my second love. I still love it dearly to this day. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, man, if I could live a life again and be 4 or 5 or 6 inches taller, I'd be in the NBA, 100%. Okay. I wouldn't even hesitate. But sports was always a huge part of my life. Not so much because I needed it or felt like I needed to play to get out, but more so because it was a true, like, from 3rd grade on, I knew I wanted to be a professional athlete. And it really wasn't until I was a sophomore in high school, which I can tell you a story about that too, is when I decided, like, football is the route for me.
Well, let's keep it on that. Yeah, I was about to ask you if there was an event in high school that kind of helped shape you to be the person you are today. So we can keep it right there.
Yeah. So here we are, sophomores in high school. We're playing a game against American football game, and they're the second worst team in the league. Okay. And I grew up with 2 very close friends, Rashad and Percy. All right. I tell that story, people start laughing. Okay. That's his name. We want me to do. And so,
yeah,
and we used to hoop
like he
every
8 years
day.
old, man.
Right. And we used to hoop every day. Like, every day. Like, school was out. It wasn't homework. It was basketball courts, then homework. Maybe. Okay.
Maybe.
All right. So yeah, so we used to hoop every day. And our dream was to go to the NBA together, college, everything. So anyway, we didn't play together our freshman year. So it was important for us to make sure we played together our JV year, right? So here we are, second to last game of the football season. Percy didn't play football. He was a straight up, strictly hooper. But Rashad was on the football team with me. And, long story short, we ended up losing to American, which was an upset because we were one of the better teams. And I just remember being in the locker room hot, like pissed off at the whole team. And my attitude was a little bit different back then. If I was upset, I was gonna let you know about it loudly. Okay, a little bit different now, a lot.
Yeah.
Let me preface that by saying this: my dream to play basketball came from my oldest sister, who passed away of MS when I was 6. She was a basketball player. And all the stories that I would hear about her being so good enough to beat the boys. Obviously, WNBA didn't exist at that time, but if it did, she had all the intangibles to be able to play at that level. But she got sick, and there was nothing she could do about it, right? She passed away when she was 21, and she got sick when she was 14. And so I wanted to, in her place, play basketball. But it didn't really materialize that way because we're in this football game, we lose. And so in the locker room, Rashad is like, yo, Turbo, man, calm down, man. Listen, we got one more game left, and then it's basketball season. And I looked Rashad in his face, and I said, man, F basketball, bro. I don't know if I can cuss on here or whatever.
Yeah, do it.
That's what I said. I said, man, fuck basketball. And I meant it. And I never meant that before about the game. And it was in that moment that I knew, like, football was away, because the only thing that I could think about was this team utilizing the off season so that next season we don't get upset like this.
Right.
And that's where the passion kind of transitioned for me.
So one of my favorite parts of this show is I like to take to Google. And I don't know if you've ever Googled yourself, Robert, but I've Googled myself plenty of times here. Now, when I Google you, it's It's almost like Google's body shaming me here, because the related searches that come up with Robert Turbin is Robert Turbin biceps, Robert Turbin arms, Robert Turbin muscles. I mean, everything's about your physique when you go Google Robert Turbin. First off, obviously, staying in shape is very important to you. But if you look at the way you're running the rock in those like Indianapolis Colts days, like your biceps are like two of my heads put together. Like what? You mentioned Trent Richardson. Trent Richardson was a big, I'm thinking Trent Richardson. You talk about Derrick Henry. Trent Richardson's kind of cut from the same cloth. You're basically like them, except compacted down to about 4 or 5 inches shorter than both those guys.
Yeah.
Listen, have you ever Googled yourself and seen these searches?
I have.
He said I have.
You actually get advised to Google yourself. Yeah, you do. So I've seen it. It's been a part of my life for a long time, man. Even before the league, I don't know. Some of it was natural. I used to take the clothes when I was in elementary school, junior high, off the rack in my closet and do like pull-ups and stuff. Like I don't know. I was always just trying to. My favorite hero cartoon character was the Incredible Hulk. So it's like as a kid, like I spent a lot of time trying to become that.
Right.
Nice.
Well, I have a feeling that like Mario and Sergio are probably to blame for all this at some point along the way.
They lit that flame.
They had something to do with it.
Now,
motivation.
Talk about that senior season at Irvington. You're getting recruited there. You're hearing all these teams. You've made that commitment to football now. You know that's kind of the path you want to go to. You also have options on the table for multiple universities and colleges and this and that. Now, when you look at Utah State, I don't think – if I think of a top-end prospect coming out of the state of California, I don't necessarily think Utah State. So what was the thought process of going to Utah State? Why did you choose Utah State to play your college ball?
I wanted to go somewhere where I could make a difference. That was the number one thing for me. The other opportunities that could have been there for me were defensively. So, I played safety as well. Pretty good there. But my dream was to be Barry Sanders, my favorite all-time running back. And from the time I was 10 years old, when I first put a helmet on and was out there wearing number 40, playing running back because my coach told me I looked like Gale Sayers. That was my dream from that day. Like, I'm going to be an NFL running back. And when the opportunity came to go to college, Utah State was really, aside from Boise State, were really the only school that supported that dream in its totality. Mm-hmm. And Boise State ended up pulling out and going to get Doug Martin, who was drafted in the same draft class as me, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? I think he played 7 or 8 seasons as well. Mm-hmm. And so, I thought to myself, where can I go and make a difference? I felt like our high school had, we had built something of ourselves, being in the state championship my junior year and being one play away from going back again, just bringing this winning mentality that I had learned and developed at Irvington, going to a place that hadn't been used to winning in a long time, could bring in that mindset, make a difference. Well, I wasn't sure, but I wanted to take on that challenge, and I believed that we could do that. So I wasn't afraid to go to the smaller school, and I wanted to be an offensive player. My best offer was probably to go to Oregon and play for Coach Aliotti, the defensive coordinator at the time, and play safety, And, most guys probably would have took that. It probably would have been a better decision. But I felt like Oregon was going to be good with or without me.
Right.
And I wanted to go to a place where I can make an impact. So Utah State.
Well, you made that impact immediately. I mean, I think that before you got there, I think the Aggies were a 1-11 team. First year you get there, they turn into a 7-6 program. I mean, that's quite the turnover. Bowl eligible that first season that you're there at Utah State. Pretty good teammates along the way. Bobby Wagner showed up there. I mean, one of Tara's favorite players this season, Jordan Love, he's a Utah State Aggie too. So, I mean, There's been some good players that have come through that program.
Yeah, we definitely went through some trials and tribulations and had to overcome some obstacles. But, we overcame them. And, we were able to get to our first bowl game, that Idaho Potato Bowl, for the first time in 30 plus years for that program. And, ever since then, it's been pretty consistent from a winning standpoint since that time. That was 2011. And so I'm very grateful for the guys that I got to play with and the time that I spent there, the people that I got to meet. It's good to see the program, and it's been in a good place for the most part since.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about how you develop your running style from a kid to who you were in the league. Earlier in the show, you talked about some players that you looked up to, and right now you just said Barry Sanders was your guy. Barry was my guy, but I had to change that because I had my coach. I was running around the backfield like Barry, like get a field. Like I got in trouble all the time, so I had to get a new running back. So Warrick Dunn was my dude that I kind of patterned my game after, around the same size and stuff like that. So Warrick Dunn is my dude. That's my favorite running back of all time. Talk about how you developed your style. Who's some of the people you looked up to?
AP and LT. When I was in college, my running backs coach was, and I'll throw Reggie Bush in there too.
Yeah, that's another one for me.
I just love the way that he ran as well. I love LT because everything with LT was so slick and smooth, and he had the versatility to catch the ball out of the backfield. For me, that was always important. Don't put me in a box because of my size, and you say, okay, all he can do is run people over. No, I'll juke the shit out you, and I'll run away from you because I got that. I'm not playing. They don't call me Turbo for no reason. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I like AP because of his aggressive run style. You know what I mean? He didn't always have great vision. I think he just got the ball and he was, you know what I mean? He was just gone. You know what I mean? And it was aggressive, so it was hard to stop him. So I really love that. When I got to college, that was the first time, I kind of learned, some of the intangibles for a running back, as far as, hey man, it's okay to get 3. You talk about Barry Sanders, right? It's man, every time I get the ball, I'm trying to go to the house.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Yeah, I'm trying to go to the house. So if that means going left, going right, going back, whatever it takes, coach is you can't do that.
Every coach is you can't do that.
Yeah.
You're not Barry Sanders.
Yeah, no, you gotta get downhill, and you gotta be okay with getting 2 or 3, because eventually 2 or 3 is gonna turn into 5 and 6, and then boom, you're gonna hit one for 80,
especially in the fourth quarter.
Right, and that holds true. But those are the guys that I really tried to model my game after: LT and AP.
Nice.
Kind of transitioning from college to the NFL. What does it take to stay in the NFL? Because, we've got these contract situations going on with these franchise tag running backs, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, holding out because, the value of that money versus the value of the time that they spend in the NFL, they know that it's short sometimes. Maintaining a career in the NFL is extremely hard. What does it take for you to stay in the NFL and have that longevity career beyond the average?
Well, you have to continue to evolve as an individual. The things that, worked for you in college, the things that worked for you earlier in career aren't going to always be the things that are going to be sustainable for you as you become older in the league, because that's all you're going to do is get older. And so consistency is really the main thing. A lot of guys, they go on vacation, they do things in the off season, they do that. And, all that stuff is good. But you have to have a program in place, something solid, something that you can lean on, something that really works for you in order for you to sustain. And then it has to evolve. My first 3 or 4 seasons, let's say 2012, 2013, 2014. That first off season, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'm just I got a lot of free time. So let's go to the Bahamas, whatever. So that's what I did. Went on a cruise, and I just felt like somebody was getting better than me because I wasn't working out that week or nothing, So I did not have my shit organized. All right. So had to evolve, had to learn. So once I got that down and found somebody that I like to train with and everything like that, as we grew, I got into this phase where, okay, now it's 2016. I'm 4 or 5 seasons in. The type of workouts that I'm doing the first part of the off season, are different now. Like I changed my whole routine where I wouldn't wear cleats the first part of the whole off season until after the summer, until we start getting ready for training camp. So when we got in the summer, that's when I started throwing the cleats on, right? And then start working those, real sharp cuts and those type of drills heading into training camp. Why? That's preserving my body, right? It's that thing where they say, work smarter, not harder, right? And that becomes more important, as you get older in the league. That's how you create that sustainability. The most important thing, and I got this from Frank Gore, because I asked him the same question. Bro, how you still playing?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like this. So I never stopped working. Yeah, I never stopped working. So eventually you get to a point where all it is a little bit of stuff consistently instead of having to do a lot at one time. That actually breaks your body down more than just doing a little bit, consistency on a day-to-day basis. That's a big one of the biggest ways of being able to stay in the league for so long.
Hey, just to add to her question before I get to my next one, did you have a veteran or someone when you were young or rookie, second year, whatnot? Do you have someone put you aside like, hey, this is what you get your shit together? Like, this is how you do it. Did you have them show you the ropes?
I really did.
Yeah,
I really didn't. I'll be honest. It wasn't until I played with Darren McFadden in Dallas in 2015, who started giving me a lot of game. But it was Frank Gore in 2016 and 17. That's why in 2016 I had my best season. I led the team in touchdowns.
Nice.
But Frank Gore couldn't go to the bathroom without me right behind him.
Smart move.
Everything he did, I did. I just followed him. You know what I mean? Like, and he was cool with that. He was cool with just teaching me and showing me the ropes day after day. And I became the best player that I had ever been in my career because of it. But early in my career, I didn't really have that same kind of guy. I had to guide it in a different way. Obviously we had a lot of superstars on the Seattle Seahawks. Marshawn was one of those guys, like, he just do it. He just do it. Like, right. Ain't no, like, I don't have a lot to tell you right now. You know what I mean? I'm doing it.
He lead by example. So,
right. So you do it. Here it is. Yeah. Boom. You know what I'm saying? And for some people that works, and it worked out well enough for me to have a little bit of success there. But I always appreciated those conversations that Frank and I would have in the cold tub, or him inviting me to the house or whatever, just giving me that much more game. It really elevated me a lot.
Speaking of the Seahawks, man, everyone you got to remember your first touchdown. You remember your first touchdown? Seattle. You talking about versatility too? It was a reception too.
Yeah, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying, right there on the
2014 San Diego Chargers.
Yeah, oh yeah, and let me tell you something. I love me some San Diego too now. I lived there for 5 years. That was my off-season home for 5 years. I mean, we'd be in the middle of the season, and I'd be on the sideline, telling the teammate, like, man, I can't wait till the season's over so I can get San Diego. You know what I'm saying? Beach, huh? Hey, I love you from San Diego. So the fact that was my first touchdown, that meant that was like it was meant to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, I remember that vividly.
I got a question. You mentioned Frank Gore here and the importance of his role in your life and coming up. What's it feel like? I mean, I've been around and I've seen some things that make me feel old. But whenever we're talking about Frank Gore Jr. here as an NFL prospect, potentially next year or the year after, coming into the NFL draft, Frank Gore's son is ready to enter the NFL. That's kind of where we're at nowadays. Does that kind of put the game as a whole into perspective, just knowing that I just played with your dad not that long ago, and now here's little Frank Gore coming up through the pipeline?
Yeah, man, it just, it's another indication of how fast it goes. Another indication of how great a player Frank was, the longevity that he was able to have in this league. I mean, it's almost unmatchable. And there's a reason why he's the third, all-time leading rusher in the NFL of all time. So
especially after his start too, he started off like injury prone and whatnot. Yeah, man,
and he don't forget that. That you want to talk about it. That's a daily motivator for him, And so I got a lot of respect for Frank. I told him, I said, man, I remember exactly where I was sitting in Candlestick Park when I watched you play. Exactly where I was sitting at, watching 21. You know what I mean? So it was a special opportunity to be able to be teammates with him.
I just like talking about Frank Gore here just a little bit because his longevity is key. You mentioned availability is your best ability throughout your career, right? Fantasy, whatnot. It's something we echo on the show all the time when we talk about fantasy sports. Frank Gore being able to play that long and this and that, it's almost like it helps him and it hinders him when talking about the greatest running backs of all time. You cannot take away third most rushing yards in the NFL, and yet for some reason, we don't tend to talk about Frank Gore as a top 5 all-time running back. Is that something that we are totally totally making a mistake on altogether? Is Frank Gore a top 5 running back in the National Football League ever?
Well, I mean, it's hard to base that off of just, yardage, So I don't think people are necessarily, and this is no disrespect to Frank Gore. Obviously, I love Frank Gore.
Right.
Everything. I mean, like if he needed something today, I would be there for him. But I don't think people are off or misconstrued if they leave him out of the top 5, because there's a lot of variables to the running back position, when you talk about top 5 guys, you know what I mean? So do I think he's a top 5 guy? I think so, because I think that he's more underrated, and I think he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And it's more so than just the longevity. I think that his overall game puts him up there for me. You want to talk about, fumbles in a career and even being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. And, you want to really get deep into it and look at like his pass protecting ability. Like these are, fans ain't looking at that shit
at all.
How many touchdowns you scored, how many times you lost somebody, you make somebody fall when you know what I'm saying? Like they're looking at the cute shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's why he gets left out, because Frank wasn't about no, nothing fancy. He just went to work and put his head down every day.
Hey, real quick, we talking top 5. We got LT, AP, Barry. Who's your last 2?
Oh man, all time. Yeah, I would definitely put those 3 guys in there. I think I got to put Walter Payton in there.
Right.
And then I got to go with Jim Brown.
There you go. Nice list.
Good list.
So you obviously, sorry, Tara, you've been around, played a few different teams, kind of all this other stuff. When we talk about impactful teammates, obviously there's been a lot of impact. We mentioned Frank Gore. You talked about Marshawn Lynch there a little bit. Which teammate probably taught you the greatest lesson, not just on the football field, but maybe off the football field? Where did that greatest lesson from a teammate come from?
Yeah, well, if you want to include off the field, because on the field, it's Frank Gore hands down. I got to throw Darren McFadden in there, and even Coach Gary Brown, rest in peace, who was a running back coach for the Dallas Cowboys at that time. But Richard Sherman used to come sit at my locker after practice for like 2 hours and just talk to me about business, marketing, branding. He'd give me so much game. 2 hours at least, minimum. No exaggeration. You know what I mean? On multiple occasions. Man, I love Richard Sherman, man. And he taught me so much about, and he's only a year older than I was, but his mind was so, was so evolved, like it was so much older than he was.
Is that because of Stanford?
Probably. Probably. Maybe the way he came up. It's a combination of both, but he just had so much game and knowledge as it pertained to the off the field stuff, and he never hesitated to share it. And he shared it with me. It wasn't like we was partners, like best partners.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we wasn't kicking it like off the field or nothing like that. But he'll sit right next to my locker, in Marshawn's locker, right next, and just, and just chop it and give me all sorts of game about, how he's branded himself and what are the things he's doing and the type of people he's hiring. And, and if you get yourself in position to do this, watch out for that, And so I will go with Richard Sherman for 100%, hands down.
I love that. And I'm going to transition that one to another question because I feel like that kind of leans into making that transition from the NFL playing on the field into the media. That's a big step and, very undervalued, that type of value of another player sharing what to do and what to do with yourself off of the field, how to market yourself, how to make that transition. What was the transition like going into media for you?
Well, it was tough. First of all, I wasn't ready to be done playing football. So I was still, working out and putting myself in position, making phone calls to teams and, trying to get back. Okay. And then when that didn't unfold, that was a very tough aspect. I think, one of the things that people don't realize about athletes and why the transition is so hard is because we've never failed. We've failed in our lives, but I mean, we've gotten to this point, so we've overcome every failure that we've had in our life. And for the first time, this is final. This is a failure that you are not overcoming. There's no extra workout you can do. Like for athletes, what do? We do if the work is not working, we put in the extra work.
Yeah.
Put in the extra time. You know what I mean? But we watch extra film. We stay after practice. We stay in the weight room longer.
Extra. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when those things aren't working, where do you go? What do you like? What's the answer? You know what I mean? And so for the first time, you feel like a failure, like you didn't make it, and that is a very, very, very difficult. It's very difficult to overcome that and come to that realization, and then try to feel like you can be just as great as something else.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this your whole life too. You've been doing this your whole life.
You're doing this out 10 years old.
Man,
that's like 20-something years. So I'm supposed to take 20-something years and implement it into something else and try to convince myself that I can be just as great at that.
Man.
Now that I'm 30, that's hard. That's a hard thing to like trick your mind into. So
but think about real quick, like I'm glad you said that because people don't talk about that part of like athletes. I didn't get to the league, but I played all the way, I went D2, even from not getting to that D1 school, I was getting recruited by everybody. And then it was like, damn, you're a failure because you didn't make it to the D1 because you got hurt. Now you kind of got forced out because it's like, you D2, like, you might be able to make it, but like life starts happening. So no one talks about that. So I think that's dope you brought that up, man.
Yeah, man. I got a teammate. His name is Adrian Bybee. He was a safety for us at Utah State. He was an upperclassman, and he was okay. He was a good player. Impact on special teams. He started at safety, and never went to the league, and that was hard for him.
No, it's everyone. I'm telling you, it's so hard.
He writing books about it today,
right?
Yeah.
It's been like 15 years. You know what I mean? So. It was a very difficult transition for me. I always knew, though, that I wanted to be on television.
Okay.
I just wasn't ready to do it yet.
Yeah.
That was a difficult part for me. And so, and I won't say always, but there was a moment throughout my football career where I'm like, man, I could do this television thing. I got a personality. I can make people laugh, I think. I hope. You know? and so I just wasn't ready to do it yet. But I'll never forget, man. I was in therapy. I had to go to therapy. I had to leave home to go to therapy. I don't tell a lot of people that. And I'm on the phone with NASA Chobe, who's the producer for the Seahawks broadcast show, the pregame show and the postgame. And, I'm talking to him about having an opportunity to, be a part of the panel and be on the team. And that was one of the first opportunities, that I got. And, it just started picking up from there. The first two opportunities I got was here in Sacramento. I was doing Channel 13, and I do post-game analysis for the Raiders and 49ers for free. 2 years I did that. And sit in my office, get on the Zoom like this, and say, hey, Raheem Mostert, he did his thing tonight. What you see right here is simple outside zone play and whatever. You know what I mean? Just giving an analysis about the game. And then, like I said, I was in therapy, and NASA didn't know, but he's like, long story short, we'd love to have you a part of the team. And then it just started, going from there, and I didn't know how I was going to feel about it initially, just because, like, I don't want to talk about the homies,
right?
I don't say nothing bad about my guys.
Yeah.
I can see that always when people just come fresh off the field and into the book, everyone's like, oh yeah, everyone's good.
right. But so my approach, I just make sure that my approach is different. And now that I've overcome some of those mental hurdles, the two things that I stand on when I do podcasts or anything like that is, number one, I'm gonna have fun. That's it. Football sometimes, not that it'll take the fun away from you, but you put a level of pressure on yourself where you can't enjoy what it is you're doing because you think about getting cut or whatever the case may be. So I'm like, nah, I'm not going to think about that shit no more, man. I'm just going to have fun. And then the second thing was I'm going to be authentic. That's why I tell people I'm not the media. Because, sometimes in media, you got to play the game. Yeah. I'm not playing no games. And if you want me to play games, then I'm not the guy for you for your network, period. Because I'm going to be RT all the way, 100%. Yeah. And if I can't do that, then we just not a fit for each other. And so those are the two ways that I approach it. And it's worked really well for me. Like, I don't get into like the headline type stories because it's not an authentic approach for me. You know what I mean? Plus, I've been there. So I got to give it to you like for real. Why am I here? If I'm just going to sound like everybody else.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I grew a great deal of passion for it. I remember participating in the broadcast media workshop that the NFLPA and that puts on every year. The NFL puts on every year, and kind of an interesting story because they denied me twice to get in. They denied me twice. The first time was like, hey, Mr. Turbin, we got all the slots filled. And I made sure, y'all, I registered early. Like, you wouldn't, but it's hard because let's be real. Like, it's easy for Larry Fitzgerald to get in that motherfucker.
Right.
Yeah.
Call a spade a spade. If you got a name, it's easier for you.
Especially you got a jacket. Yeah.
Come on. It's just honest. Not saying anybody's bad or whatever. It's just honest.
Right.
Okay. So when they denied me, I responded, and this is the point in my life where, like, I'm still trying to kind of get back out. I was down. You know what I mean? Like, I was not 2 years ago today, I would not be able to do this podcast. That was not me. I was trying to find me again. You know what I'm saying? Like, who is Robert Turbin? Turbo? I'm not Turbo. I don't even I don't even recognize that name anymore. Right? Disappeared. So they denied me. I emailed the guys back like, hey, I really would like to do this. They denied me a second time. So now I'm hot. So the email that I sent that time was not very kind. Like to the point I had to apologize later. After they sent me the email back saying, okay, we found a spot for you.
And you're like, oops.
But it's led to opportunities with CBS, calling games on Sundays for college, and doing television for them, pre and post game shows, NFL Quarterback Monday, today in the SEC. It's led to opportunities to be on NFL Network. Just got a contract offer from them 2 days ago.
Congrats.
You know what I'm saying? I appreciate that. And led to the opportunity, like I mentioned, with Seattle and Sirius XM now, who I've been with over a year now. And so I've been very fortunate. God is good. I'm blessed. And the thing that I want to be able to do the most is impact other guys who are in transition as much as I can. Like, yo, trust me, I was down bad, okay? But you can overcome it like I did, and be just fine. Yeah. And find the passion in something else, like football. Remember, I was just saying, like, I was like, how do I find passion in something I want to be great at it? I got it in a couple of things now. Some of it is in broadcasting, some of it is in business. You know what I mean?
So you're saying it's life after football. We need to start preaching that.
Yeah. So, man, it's been great. Been a great journey.
You talk about that, that tenacity to get there, that pushing through, breaking through those walls and those stops where, people are trying, things aren't easy and pushing through. What's something that you wish you would have known back when you were high school, when you were younger?
Well, I certainly wish I would have known just about overall business and entrepreneurship, investing, real estate, all of those things that they don't teach you in high school. Taxes, insurance. Right. Insurance is huge. What? Mm-hmm. It's the biggest loophole we got in America. One of them. You know what I mean? They don't tell you that until you got to buy it. You know what I'm saying? So my daughter is 12 years old, and I had a conversation with her yesterday, and I said, baby, I want you to start doing something for me. I said, every day, I want you to think about something that you want to learn that you don't know anything about. Investing, saving, finances, could be, I don't know, hair, could be skincare, could be anything. And I want you to start watching, because you can find anything, Google, YouTube, right? Start watching videos, on these topics 2-3 times a week. And I want you to write something down. And every week, I want you to show me something you learned about this week that you didn't know before. I told her, I said, one day you're going to be very successful. And having knowledge on these things is going to be very important, because then you will never get taken advantage of. So people get taken advantage of because they don't have knowledge on things. And that's not going to be you, So today she told me, she was like, I learned about, stocks and, what they mean and what they are and bonds. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, I can't wait to see the report at the end of the week.
Right.
So it's those kind of things, like to answer your question, like when I was in high school, that I would have been able to put myself in a position to learn a little bit more at a younger age.
I love that you mentioned taxes. I went to register my youngest daughter for high school. And one of the courses they're actually offering now is a tax course. Nice. So you can learn about these taxes, stuff that you should probably learn more than you're going to learn math and social stuff, right? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I don't use my trigonometry today back like I had to in high school. I mean, taxes would have been a little bit more useful. Luckily, I married someone who knows more useful. That, so,
I mean, I didn't know how to write a check till I was a rookie.
That's
I
crazy.
didn't know what write-offs were
Man.
until like my third year in. Like, what do you mean I can write this off? What does that mean? What does that even? And then I get it back? How? You know?
Man.
Like, it was such a foreign language for and it is for a lot of guys. So, man, put ourselves in a position to learn that at a younger age is important.
So, Robert, before we let you go, you mentioned earlier about your past, your sisters and stuff. When you're that young, there's not a whole lot you can do at that age, right? You mentioned your sister at 14 and this and that. But one of the things that you've done since then is I know you're big on those charities, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis. These are charities, foundations that you work hand in hand with. So that's one of those things that you've done. Is there something that you're really excited about? So you got those, you got the alumni basketball camp, which I don't know if Josh McCown's been invited to play one-on-one with you or not, but you've also got your football camp. So you've got that philanthropy thing going on for you there that you're giving back. You mentioned being in a bad place at one point in your career there, or you're dealing with the stuff from your past there with your siblings and whatnot there. So there's a lot for you to draw from when you look at where you've become from way back when to where you are now. So just talk us about the importance of what these fundraising and charity opportunities mean to you.
Well, it's just, for me, it puts me in a space where, it just humanizes me. And it's like, listen, I'm no different than you guys. I walk the same hallways, the same streets. I practice on the same fields. I have the same, there was no silver spoon out here, for me. I had tragedies that I had to overcome, situations in my life, in college and as an adult, that I had to overcome. And, I was able to persevere through those things, and you can too. I think it's just really more so than anything, just that physical presence is important, because it's like, some people will see you, and I'm not, it's not like my name is Tom Brady, but some people will see you as like this larger than life individual. And, I think it's important for all of us, to like bring us down to earth. I'm just regular earthling like you, what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I've had some successes in my life, but I've had some failures too, and some challenges, and I'm here to tell you that no matter what, just as long as you persevere and you have the strong mindset, you can do those things too. A lot of people think it's, roses and all that, and it's not. So, yes, sir.
I like that. Your past does not necessarily define who you are, who you're going to become. So I really appreciate you sharing all that wisdom with us today. I could do a part 2 on this. I got still so many questions here that I want to ask, I want to talk about, but maybe we'll save that for part 2, another day, another time as we get closer to the NFL season. Robert, just kind of let us know where we can find you coming up next. Where are you going to be? You mentioned that NFL Network there. I don't know if you're allowed to share that or not, but you mentioned it. So,
so obviously my Twitter, Instagram, all my social media handles are at Robert J. Turbin. You find all my content there. Catch me on NFL Radio, Sirius XM, CBS Sports, and NFL Network. I don't have all those dates. But when they come out, you will see me, and you'll see those things on my social media handles. So be sure to come check your boy out. Turbo Talk Live is coming back soon as well. My podcast. So be on the lookout for that.
There you go. We're going to have the LT Turbo Show coming on the NFL Network, hopefully sooner rather than later. With that all being said, this has been Behind the Grind. For Turbo, for Tara, for Major, I'm Matt Dolly, and we will see you next time. Take care now.
Peace.